Hi everybody, welcome back to the Retro Ghetto and my 2025 Game Room Tour. Right, we're going to start in this corner here, and firstly I'll just show you these lights. So I've got LED lights going the full perimeter of the room. This was quite a difficult process. Thankfully I was able to do it at the plastering stage. There is a whole library of videos of me building this room, because this was a dilapidated old garage which we completely renovated, so I'll make sure I put the link to that library of videos in the description below. But yeah, lights aside, let's get into it. So one of the first things to point out is that I am a huge fan of standees, promotional display items, that kind of thing. And yeah, what better place to start than with the Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. There was 3 of these released. I do have all 3. You'll see them throughout the room. And up here we've got Ghost of Sparta. So that's the PSP release. Fantastic game. Very rare standee. I've got to give a shout out to Rollercore for hooking me up with that one, and it just fits in perfectly up there. This is, I believe, a 55-inch Sony OLED TV, and we make our way down here. This is like, I can't remember what this was. This was like a series of artists that made these statues in like an NES style. There's loads of different designs. This is like a DIY one where you're supposed to sort of like put your own design on it, but I just like the plain white aesthetic of it. And that's a lot of what I've done in this room, to be honest. I've got a lot of white furniture, white hardware, and I tried to let the collection, the games, the promotional pieces be the colour, be the standout features of the room. So yeah, I thought that fit in nicely. I've got some Technics speakers. We're probably in a day and age, right, where I'm an absolute dinosaur. You could probably get better sound now in speakers which are a fraction of the size of these, but I think it just harkens back to when I was younger, and this is my aesthetic, right? Growing up as a kid in the 90s, and I just think these look cool. They look fantastic in my opinion. And again, with that white piece, yeah, it just matches the room. This is an original store display PlayStation light. I was fortunate enough to get this from a Click Gaming store which was closing down in Birmingham, I believe. It's not mint by any means. I had to do my best to fix it up, but that does light up. I just think it looks great. PS5. In my opinion, it should be illegal to make consoles that don't fit in Kallax units. The PS5 is very much guilty of that, which is why it's there. So it's somewhat messing up my symmetry, but I guess I can live with it. And then we make our way down to the Kallax unit. Now this has been heavily modified. When you buy these originally, they don't have a back on, so you'd see all the wires. So we had like a piece of MDF specially cut and put in the back with all the holes and everything cut into it. Yeah, and also all of these to divide each section again by half, so we can get more stuff into it. Behind here as well, there are speakers. So the speakers in each corner of the Kallax unit. This is a speaker as well. I'll get to my sound system and surround sound and everything shortly. But again, just to try and go with that white aesthetic, I've tried to go for an all-white console look. Where I can, Sega is a bit of an issue. And down here would normally be my gloss white Xbox 360. That's currently in for repairs stroke modification, so I've just put the white Vita there for now. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how all that white console units come together. This silver slim PS2 will hopefully be getting replaced. I'm hoping to get the fat Japanese white PS2, so that's something that hopefully we'll add this year. And the 2 drawer units are just full of peripherals, controllers, wires, all that boring stuff that you need to have in a games room. So we keep going around here. We've got the second of the Grand Theft Auto San Andreas standees. I just think they just work so well. They just sort of like frame the area of the television brilliantly. And I'm quite fussy when it comes to TV walls. This is as busy as I would want it. I'm not the sort of person that wants like rows and rows of games by my television. I don't want to be too distracted from what's on the screen itself. But carrying on, we come round to this side. This is a slight change that I made this year. Now previously these units were lined up, but we needed to create a bit of space for something quite large, which we'll get to shortly. So I just moved this along, but you can still access the CD system. And again, these Technics separates, there's probably far better things on the market, but again, it's just something that I really wanted as a child, could never afford. Always looked at like the older, cooler guys that had one of these, and I found this in a charity shop for like £10. So yeah, delighted with that. It works perfectly. I added a vinyl record player, and that's obviously what's linked up to these. I've got my quite modest record collection down here. This is mostly sort of Motown, hip-hop. I'm an old sort of hip-hop fan. And in there, you can't quite see him, is the Mezco SDCC exclusive Juicy Biggie. As I say, you can't really see him, he's hidden out the way down there. And something else, speaking of hidden, which is a damn shame, is this. So this is an original Super Nintendo sign. Again, store display. It's a bit of a waste having it there, but hopefully one day we can display it better. I just ran out of room because of my attempt at a full Super Nintendo set, but yeah, I still think it looks very cool. And this area for me really sums up my love of sort of early 2000s and stroke 90s hardware. I just think it's such a timeless design. We'll get to this B&O television shortly. And on top of that, we have of course got Rob the Robot and one of my favourite standees in my entire collection, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Now all of my standees are original. These are not reproductions or anything. These were original store display pieces. That was not cheap, but I think it was a great purchase, and I just think it fits in that gap. Yeah, I mean, it's Capcom, it's Marvel, it's bright colours. It couldn't be any better, right? Absolutely love that thing. And then we get up to the Mega Drive wall. So this is something which has been a constant work in progress. And like a lot of my game collections, I do it based on aesthetics. So you'll notice on the top, it's all the Blue Spine games together. And we've added some nice ones this year. Got Aero the Acrobat. We added Soleo, that's high on my list of games to play actually. Skeleton Crew, Probotector. Then we come down to Black Box. Ranger X was a new addition. Here's my shmup collection down here. Heavily going for the full Mega Drive PAL shmup collection. And yeah, just a lot of games which I think display well. That's why I've got them forward facing, the Outrun trilogy. I've got to give a shout out to Kev. We're going to be hearing about Kev a few times. So Kev's the owner of a signage company, a good friend of mine, and he made this Mega Drive backlit light for me, and it just looks fantastic, right? It's just a great piece. And then again, continuing the aesthetic theme with the bottom shelf where I could only go spine only. I didn't have the room to forward face them all. We've got the yellow EA spines, a continuation of blue spines, some sort of randoms, and then your more typical black standard Mega Drive boxes. And I've got to give a massive shout out to another friend of mine, Theo, Slimeass TV. Just an absolute wizard at all things really. I'll make sure there's a link below to his channel, go and check him out. But he made this Toe Jam and Earl toys for me. There is another fantastic piece in here as well, which we'll get to later on. But yeah, just an absolute great guy, so make sure you go and check his channel out. And then we'll get to the retro area. So the way I've got it set up is all of these consoles on this side are hooked up to this television, whereas these consoles here are hooked up to the older television, which is a Bang & Olufsen 32-inch DVD Avant, I believe is the correct terminology for this television. It does wonderful things. I always take any opportunity I can to show off the DVD portion, which opens up and closes. Just a timeless design, right? They just don't make things with this build quality anymore, unfortunately. But I absolutely love this thing. One of my favourite things in my collection, and I'm just hoping I can keep this thing going because, yeah, it's a very heavy piece. It's not the sort of thing that you want to be getting in and out of a games room, that's for sure. So now it's in here. I'm hoping it can live in here forever. One of the things that I get asked about more than anything else is this coffee table. So obviously it's a Super Nintendo coffee table. Love this thing. People always ask me where I got it from. This was custom made by a guy relatively local to me on eBay. I think I won this so cheap, he never made any more. I think it's a case of my gain is other people's loss, because he was surprised how cheap I won it for. I was as well, and I just don't think it was cost effective for him. So to my knowledge, he never made any more. Absolutely love this thing. Such high craftsmanship on it. And on there we've got a switch dock, which is linked to this. So this is one of 4 TVs I have in this area. This can be maneuvered, so it comes out, spins around, so I can basically lie here on my couch, and it's hooked up to the Nintendo Switch. It just gives me options when I'm watching sport or whatever on the main TV, that I can play my Switch on that. And also, one of the big features of this is that the whole thing can be rotated, so I can play my shmups in tape mode. So many great shmups on the Switch, it just makes sense. And then we go underneath the SNES table. We've got a VHS player, and this is basically my surround sound. So we've already spoke about speakers that are in the Kallax unit. There are also speakers either side behind the sofa, and there's a sub down there as well. So it's a fantastic sound when you sit here, and yeah, you can just lie back and have that great audio quality. And that's it. We move along to the third and final Grand Theft Auto San Andreas standee. So she's in position there. And then I think we get to what is probably my best edition of 2024. A real grail of mine. This life-size Kratos. I mean, God of War is probably my favourite franchise of games. And this was, like I say, an absolute grail piece for me. This popped up a couple of months ago. Quite local. Relatively cheap. Not cheap by any means, but in terms of like what these things are RP'd for. Because this is a NECA life-size figure. I did a whole video about this, so go and check out the back catalogue if you're interested. But yeah, just fantastic. Nobody thought I'd make room in here. But by shuffling everything along, and as I aforementioned, moving the vinyl record unit along a bit, it just gave me enough space to get him in, and I'm so glad that I was able to do so. And that takes me to another Kev creation. Now, this is the channel logo, backlit, fully lights up. It's wonderful. I haven't got the light on for the video purposes because when you have too many lights on in here, it can mess up the video quality. But you'll be seeing an overlay now of how good this thing looks when it's fully lit up. And again, I've got to give a massive shout out to Kev for the hookup on that. And then here we've got an extension of the Mega Drive games. So I've put some of my favourite trilogies in here, as well as some other nice pieces on the end there. And I did that just because I think it just frames the logo better, rather than the logo being sort of like random. I think having it framed by Mega Drive games just gave it a better look, and yeah, I think it's turned out very well. Now we come down here, and these are two of my favourite pieces in my entire collection. These are Big Boys Toys bulkies. These are my two favourite Street Fighter figures, Ryu and Sagat. They do need to be displayed better. There is going to be big changes in this games room this year, very early on. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. You don't want to miss out. We're going to have the biggest games room changes that have probably ever happened since we built this room. And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to get this room filmed today, because I really wanted to capture the room as it is now. So it's going to be on film forever. Because yeah, pretty soon the room's going to change a lot. But these are two small units that I added recently just to keep up with the overflow. I've got so many Xbox 360 collector's editions that I put some of them in here. And they're not necessarily going to stay here. I'm not overly happy with how it is, but it just helped for now. And then we've got a sub there, and my Xbox 360 Classics collection, which is sort of hidden away behind Kratos. And then we get to an area which I really put a lot of focus in last year. My Xbox 360 collection. It was a good time to do it. I've always been a huge Xbox 360 enthusiast, and I sort of got there before the curve in some ways, because obviously prices went crazy with the announcement of the online closures of the stores. So yeah, I like to think that I got a lot of these games before the prices went too nuts. I completed the full Pro Evo series, loads of nice collector's editions. We added this Goku Battle of Z last year, and the games actually do go all the way back into that far corner. But yeah, some very nice ones. Castlevania Lords of Shadow. This was actually my favourite game that I played through last year. And then I'm a big fan of cardboard, really, in all its guises. So this is evidence of that. These are all slip covers and sleeve covers for the Xbox 360. Some very weird and wonderful ones. And one of the things I really enjoy about it is the fact that you can walk into a CEX, pick these up at standard prices. It's just sort of the thrill of the hunt, finding these rare bits of cardboard sleeves. And then we go into Steelbooks, and then we've got a lot more big box stuff and collector's editions down here on the bottom shelf. And then as we make our way out of the 360 games, we get to the 360 kiosk. This is something I've had for a few years now. I got an unbelievable deal on this a few years ago. It was filthy. It came out like a student flat. Every inch of it's been clean, taken apart. And again, I've got to give a shout out to my friend Kev, who hooked me up with Street Fighter 4 vinyls for it. Originally this came with the Connect motif, and I just was not a fan of how it looked. So we spent a day with Kev's designers really trying to find what I thought it would look like if Microsoft made one of these for Street Fighter 4. And to be honest, I think we nailed it. I think it looks pretty legit. Really happy with it. Yeah, very happy with that. Once upon a time, I owned 4 or 5, maybe 6 kiosks. This is the one that's always stood the test of time, and this is now the last kiosk standing, if you like. And that takes us to this back area. So this whole area was sort of divided by the creation of this. We added a top to what was just IKEA Billy bookcases, LEDs running underneath. It just looks brilliant. And that's where I've got most of my PlayStation 3 games housed. So again, we've gone sort of aesthetics first. I've got the old school red topped spine PS3 up here, and that moves into some of the more bigger box stuff. This was a subset that I completed this year. I was delighted to complete this. So the SmackDown vs Raw 2011 series. Quite hard to track all 3 of these down now. And also, this was a great find a few years back, £4 in CEX. The Stone Cold 316 WWE 2K13 edition. That comes with a signed Stone Cold picture and stuff inside. So yeah, that was a great find. And yeah, it just really, again, highlights my love of cardboard. Anything weird and wonderful that I find when I'm out and about. Just things that you don't see too often. Like, I wouldn't be in a rush to pick up the Call of Duty Modern Warfare games, but you put them in a cardboard sleeve and yeah, you can guarantee I'm all over it. That takes me to a couple of nice pieces here. This is my God of War Ultimate Trilogy edition. So this comes with a Pandora's box. These have become quite hard to find actually in recent times. And then we've got this. Now this is a reviewer's kit. So this would have been sent out to different reviewers at the time for God of War 3, one of my favourite games ever made. Real nice piece. Very happy to own that. Just not something that you ever see come available for sale. I can't remember the last time I saw one. So yeah, delighted with that. Make our way down. We've got yet another God of War Collector's Edition. We've got the Ascension. And we continue on with sleeve covers. So PS3 sleeve covers. Some more big box stuff. That God of War trilogy is a very nice piece. And then we've got some Steelbooks, Killzone Hellgast helmet, and I added this last year as well, the Ellie edition of The Last of Us. I of course now need to get Joel in 2025. That's just, yeah, nice marketing on their part, but I will have to add Joel. But as I say, we are going to be extending a lot of this games room, so I should have the room to display more pieces. And down here we've got my CD collection. This is mostly things that have been found in charity shops, predominantly hip-hop. Some real good stuff in here, but yes, I am old school. I do still listen to CDs. And these get played a lot in here when I'm pottering about and cleaning up. And right down at the bottom, this really nice Tekken 5 standee. I've just attached it to this drawer, so again, this drawer just contains overflow of stuff, doubles, that kind of thing. But I've got a nice PlayStation display piece to hide that. There, let me, old man getting up, listen to my knees cracking. A door, nothing much too exciting. I've got this original Def Jam Vendetta poster on there. Big fan of the Def Jam games. But this down here is pretty much my shame. So down in this corner here, this is just new additions which I have not had time to put into situ just yet. So these are all new pieces that I'll be adding to the shelf soon. We have this Nintendo Power figure. I've got quite a few of these dotted around the room. Again, it doesn't have a home right now. And this, which was arguably my find of 2024. This is a Dutch and Spanish Super Nintendo exclusive. I'd never seen this before. So yeah, absolutely delighted to add that. I'm a huge Super Nintendo, Mario All-Stars, the colour red, which we'll get to shortly, fan. So yeah, this felt like something I had to have, but we haven't yet found a home for it. As we move across, we have this Ryu standee. So this was originally a Red Bull standee, as you can see from this ring tab here. I cut the Red Bull pieces off. I didn't like the Red Bull advertisement of it. I think he fits in there nicely. I'm a huge fan of the Street Fighter 5 artwork, even if the game wasn't the best. And speaking of artwork, one of my favourite standees ever made. I've never seen another one, so I was very fortunate to find this. This is actually a huge standee. It stands about 5 foot tall. This is only a couple of pieces of it. I didn't have the room to display it in all its glory, but I think I've got the best 2 pieces on display. As you can see, they're like 3D, they stand off from each other. I just think it's absolutely fantastic. Love it. Again, it's one of my favourite pieces in here. the colours just pop, and I'm all about vibrant colours, right? So yeah. And before we get to what I've dubbed the red wall, we're going to go up here. I'm not a massive Assassin's Creed guy, but I am a huge Greek mythology fan. And I think what they did with this Assassin's Creed Odyssey statue from the collector's edition is second to none. I don't think there's a better gaming statue out there. This Medusa base that it sits on, absolutely love it. And that's why that's there with pride of place. And up here, we have the only thing in this room you might see dust on. Obviously, I've got the room ready for its tour. It's grand day out. This, however, I don't dare touch it. This is one of the oldest and probably the rarest and most expensive thing in this room. An original 1990 Nintendo sign. Genuine grails, but these are so delicate. These are like hollow formed plastic, paper thin. If you breathe on it, you'll break it. So yeah, that's barely been touched since I put it up there. I think it's perfectly placed on that wall. But like I say, I don't even like to dust it or anything. So that's just sat up there, looking pretty. And I do my best to not go anywhere near it. I'm a big Disney's Hercules fan, so I've got a couple of figures hidden down there. But we now get to, as I say, the red wall. Told you I like the colour red, so this is something that we were hoping to be extending, and that's where I hope to implement that Mario All-Stars pack, but that's all for a future episode. So we're going to make our way over to the top corner. I believe the PlayStation 3 Slim is the best looking console ever made, and I believe that the red variant is the best looking of those. So in my opinion, this right here is the best looking console ever produced. I am not a console collector by any means, I just buy them to use them. And my aesthetic is usually white, so I'm not really someone that chases after different variants and things. But this, it just felt right, especially leading into what I believe at time of recording is still the only full PlayStation 3 Essentials set in the world. I completed this last year, and I was absolutely delighted to do so. I did not anticipate the journey it would take me on. I thought this was going to be quite an easy journey of just picking up common games for cheap, but that wasn't the case. Whilst this is a PAL exclusive set, the Essentials, what I didn't anticipate was that there'd be a lot of region specific only games. So there's a lot of games that only came out in certain European countries, and crucially, with it being PAL, there was a couple of games, I'm looking at you, FIFA 17, that only came out in South Africa and only came out for a very short amount of time in South Africa. So yeah, it was a very difficult set to complete. I had a lot of help from a lot of people all around the world, and it was quite the journey, and definitely one of my collecting highlights throughout my whole life, really. Just delighted to have got this set done. And then we've got my man Quentin Tarantino there from my favourite film of all time, Pulp Fiction, chilling with his coffee. And whilst we're talking about collecting goals, I'll go up here. I've got this Retro Gamer framed. If you're wondering why I've got that one framed, I actually appear in that in the collector's corner. Again, very much a collector's goal of mine. So shout out to the people at Retro Gamer for putting me in the magazine. But then we get down to a very nice shelf, my toy shelf. So again, I tried to keep the aesthetic of things running across the room. Rather than going like downwards, I like to take things across. I just think personally it looks better like that. So the first of my toy shelves is dedicated to the God of War franchise. There's some random NECA pieces in the back, but it's these first 5 figures that I love. One of my favourite ever toy lines created. This is the DC toy line from God of War 3. And what I was very fortunate whilst I was on that journey of collecting these was to find this on eBay. So this is a prototype, so one of a kind. This is what they would have used when they were making the molds and stuff. So for me to have like a one-off prototype of what is my favourite toy line, yeah, genuinely one of my favourite pieces in my entire collection. I'm very, very happy to own that. Continuing across, we now enter the Street Fighter section. I'm a huge fan of all things Street Fighter. I'm not very good at the games, but yeah, I love the characters, I love the artwork, and it's one of few toy lines where I basically just collect anything and everything for that I find out and about on my travels. I had a lot of the newer stuff, I had a lot of the Storm collectibles figures, which are great, but it wasn't really aesthetic. I like the old stuff, so a lot of these are the SOTA, so state-of-the-art toys. I just think there's something cooler about hunting old stuff rather than buying up new stuff. So this has been a very slow slowly progressed collection. It's hard to find variants that I don't already own. They come up very infrequently. But yeah, I add to this collection whenever I can. Love that. I just think it's a great looking shelf. And then we go down the red wall a little bit further. And I took my love of PS3 budget lines one step further by going with the PS4 greatest hits. I'm 3 short of this, but they're not particularly hard to get, so I will be adding those very soon. And that's, yeah, that will be the full PS4 greatest hits set. And yeah, again, I love red spines, which takes us down to one of my favourite consoles of all time, the Nintendo Switch. This here is a Club Nintendo exclusive, I think. These are like a reproduction of the cards from Nintendo's past, how Nintendo started. And yeah, it's just a cool little shelf filler, really. I adore the Switch. So many great games. The prices are finally starting to come down, so I can extend this collection more and more. But this is a console I'm going to be collecting for the rest of time. Regardless of what happens with Switch 2, Switch 3, whatever comes down the line, I'm always going to be buying Nintendo Switch games. I've just got so much love for the system. And again, towards the end, we get to sort of sleeve covers here, and then more big box stuff on the end there. This is my little shelf of shame. We're going to get to my Super Nintendo problem shortly. I'm going for a full set, which means that there's pretty much Super Nintendo games hidden everywhere in this room. This whole shelf is just stacked all the way back of Super Nintendo. I mean, we're talking good games as well. It's not just like filler titles in here. There's also Super Nintendo games behind the Switch stuff, and yeah, pretty much everywhere. But I don't want to miss these guys out. So these are, again, Big Boys Toys, a Hong Kong-based company. And these are called the New Challengers, I believe. And all of these light up, make sounds, very cool. I've got a few more of these that we'll get to shortly. And sticking with Street Fighter, one of the first things I implemented on this room was this tiny little shelf. And I think it's one of the best things I ever did. So this is for the Kid Robot Street Fighter Minis. Again, similar with my Street Fighter figures, I add very few of these. I think I added one last year. Again, it's just trying to find variants that I don't already have. It's very difficult, very few and far between that they become available. But I do think they look fantastic on the shelf, arranged in that way. And then we've got a bit of an overflow of PS3, so it's just your standard edition spines here. And that turns into Game Boy. I hope to make my Game Boy display more prominent next year, again with all the sort of shelf expansions that I've got planned. A lot of stuff that you see here is sort of like first party stuff. There are exceptions. There are some really nice pieces that I wanted. We've got the Pokemon trilogy, we've got the Mario trilogy, Tetris, Zelda, that kind of thing. But I love collecting Game Boy. I just add to them very infrequently. And this little guy here, not the biggest Warner Brothers fan, I've got to be honest. But I think he sort of like, for me, surmises that you never know what you're going to find on a game hunt. I went out one day hunting games and I just saw him randomly in a shop and I just had to have him. So Marvin the Martian lives down there in that corner. And then we get to this little guy here. They said it couldn't be done. They said I would never fit 2 life-size figures in this room, but I have. So this one's by a company called, I think they're called Oxmanox, a German company. But I found this on eBay, got it for a great price. Love this thing. I'm not going to admit to being the biggest Halo fan. I enjoyed the games. It's just more for how much I love the statue, to be honest. And he just fits so well into that corner there. And down here, before I forget, I've got an old Retro Ghetto logo. So an old wooden piece I had made when I first started the channel. And an original store display Xbox light. This thing looks great when it's lit up. It just fits perfectly down there by Master Chief's feet. I think before we get to the Super Nintendo madness, we'll continue with these shelves down here. This is the full PAL Wii U set. I can't remember exactly how many there are now. I kind of chose to erase a lot of this from my brain. It was such a long, arduous journey to complete this set. I think there's like 162 maybe. But yeah, very happy to have that full set. And I just think the display so well. Those blue spines, they just look great. It's one of the occasions where I think that the PAL set looks better than the NTSC set. There's a predominantly white. I just think there's something about the blue that just displays really well. And again, we've got more of those figures here, which I spoke about. Love these things. I would like more, but I'm kind of at full capacity as it stands, right? So I've just got the 6. And that takes us down to PlayStation 4. I'm not a huge PlayStation 4 collector. It's more weird and wonderful stuff, collector's editions, things which just catch my eye when I'm out and about. A good example of that would be this. This was a recent edition, Second Son. It comes with like a little denim jacket that goes over the game. If I see things like that, I'm picking it up, no doubt about it. But I mean, there are some nice pieces in here, dotted throughout. Andro Dunos 2 is a favourite of mine, one of my favourite shmups. I've just added that Catherine full body Steelbook. Dark Souls trilogy, that's still sealed. I will unseal that this year. I'm going to try and make my first foray into the Souls games with that, so I'm sure everyone will enjoy laughing at me dying repeatedly on the channel this year. And yeah, we've got a bit more PS4 there. Down here, of course, I've got the Street Fighter 5 Collector's Edition, and then it's just, again, more big box stuff, sleeves, steelbooks. There are a few random standard games, but not many. So then we come up to here, and this is a bit of an overflow shelf, really. So these are Switch, but these are all Wii U Collector's Editions. And then we've got a bit of Wii stuff as well. The Red Steel 2 one, you don't see that often, so that was nice to add. And I just think that the House of the Dead Overkill hand cannon just displays so well. And making our way down from that, we have got my big box, strictly limited Switch shmup collection. That's a mouthful. And randomly, it does not belong here in any way, shape or form, the Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots Collector's Edition. This was a very recent edition, so I just sort of put it there for now for the purposes of my room tour. And behind that is even more CDs, so I've got more hip-hop CDs sort of flowing all the way down behind there. The only Funko Pop you'll ever see in this room, the Ice Cube, Today Was a Good Day. I think that's the best pop ever made. Another of the Nintendo Power figures. I think, if I'm right in saying, the first ever Zelda toy. So that's the Ocarina of Time. Link. And what is, I believe, a shampoo bottle. But I do like collecting Mario toys from yesteryear. I like the old stuff, the derpy looking Mario. And then if we go down here, small Xbox One collection. Just sat on the bottom shelf there with some steelbooks. And again, sleeve covers. Whilst I'm down here to save my old man legs, we'll carry on. Capcom Home Arcade. This is more of a display piece. It very rarely gets played. I played through Alien vs Predator on it when I first got it, but besides from that, it's been gathering dust ever since. And then one of my favourite shelves. I showed you guys that red Mario console bundle earlier, and that's because of my love of Mario All-Stars. This is the game that I unwrapped as I think a 7-year-old one Christmas. Fell in love with it. This is what birthed everything in this room. So yeah, this is like my little homage to All-Stars. We've got the console itself, the Wii edition, the VHS, and then we've got the Super Nintendo version with added Super Mario World, the Red Nintendo Classics version, and the standard version. And then we've got some more big box stuff, Super Metroid, the Super Game Boy, and a couple packs of Mario cereal, which I keep getting told is dangerous to eat. So that's remaining sealed. It's about 8 years out of date. We go up here and we get to the last of the Wii U, which then goes into Wii. I think the Wii gets a bit of a bad rep because there's so much rubbish stuff on there, but there's also a lot of good stuff. And I've tried to keep these shelves sort of like all killer, no filler, if you like. There's some real good stuff in the Wii library. You've just got to hunt it out. I always think of it as being like TK Maxx. If you go in there and look for enough of the rubbish, you will find a gem. And that's very much the case with the Wii. I've added some nice ones this year. Rygar. Samurai Showdown Anthology took me a long time to find and actually ended up getting it sealed. But yeah, just some real nice stuff. And then we go up to GameCube. Now, I'm not a big GameCube collector, but I have been busy this year. Last year, sorry. All 4 pieces of Nintendo GameCube cardboard I've added. Some real nice pieces in there. The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker one in particular was a personal favourite. This is genuinely one of my favourite things in the whole room. I am not exaggerating when I say I think I spent about 5 years trying to find this. Every time I found it, it was either like sealed, ridiculously expensive. This is another of those Nintendo Power figures, of course, from Mario Sunshine. And yeah, I just love that thing, I really do. And then we've just got the rest of my standard GameCube collection there. Nothing too exciting at all. As we make our way down, we get to PlayStation 2. This for me, is arguably the best looking slipcover of all time. I'm so happy to add this. It's rocketed in price in recent times. But yeah, there is some really nice stuff in the PS2 library. I can't really get down to film to show you all too much because there's not that much of a gap between the sofa and the PS2 area. But you have to just take my word for it. And PS2 continues down here until we get to this little section, which is PlayStation 2, Steelbooks, slipcovers, cardboard boxes, that kind of thing. You know the drill by now. We then make our way up. Actually, I think we'll stick with PS2. I'll talk about this. So this is a UK exclusive, I believe. So this is a PS2 TV. Very rare in recent times. It's basically a Sony Bravia, I believe, but the base is a PlayStation 2. Very cool piece of kit. Great to play those games on. It looks great, sounds great. Crucially, it comes with the remote as well. Yeah, just a very nice piece. And I've actually got this whole shelf on like casters, so these come out on wheels. This whole thing can be pulled out, so I can sit in my position here and have my PS2 where I want it, so I can comfortably play it. And I can actually get all 4 screens comfortably from my seating area, which was obviously imperative in a games room. I've got the God of War Collector's Edition statue displayed there. And above that, we're going to go to something I've put a lot of time into recently, my Lego army. So I think I've already mentioned I'm a huge fan of like Greek mythology and stuff. And I'm kind of going for an army of Romans stroke Greeks. It doesn't make any historical sense, but I love it. As you can see, I've knocked a few of these. They're not quite as straight as they should be. But I've got big plans to expand this into a big Lego fight scene next year, this year. I keep saying next year, this year. I've got like a dedicated space. I'm going to create a full Lego landscape, and we're going to be using a lot of this army to tell the story of that battle. So yeah, that's something I'm looking forward to putting together. And then we get to what is probably my most improved collection from last year, PlayStation 1. I've been really focusing on PlayStation 1. This was a real nice piece to add. A lot of great games. I'm very proud of the additions that we managed to do last year. There's quite a lot of heavy hitters that we added, just sort of right place, right time that came along. Some real nice games, for example, Jackie Chan Stuntmaster. That's become quite an expensive, difficult one to get. Cooler World, and you know, many others. But yeah, really enjoying going down the PlayStation 1 rabbit hole. That is like a Disney 3-pack special in there. And in between, another set of minis. I've already mentioned Pulp Fiction, my favourite movie of all time. Again, another one that's very hard to add to. There are quite a few missing, but you just don't find them very often at all. Here we have this Lara Croft statue. I sold a lot of statues this year. I sold my Kratos on the throne. I sold my Ryu bust. I just, you know, it's time to move them on. I'd had them years and running out of space. Whereas I kept Lara Croft for a couple of reasons. One, she's newer to the collection. And also because even though she's very derpy looking, it's the fact that this is a store display piece. This was never for sale. There's no RRP on her. This wasn't something you could ever buy. This was something that was in stores and shops to promote the Tomb Raider game. So I do like having promotional pieces. So yeah, she's fitted in there nicely. And then on the door, we've got God of War standee. And up in the top corner, I added this last year. So this is like Safubi, I believe they call it, in the toy collecting world. I'm really happy with that. Hagar from Final Fight. And another one of Theo, aka Slimehouse TV's creations. A little Zool figure that he got for me. So, at this point, the only thing left to do is look at my Super Nintendo wall. It's difficult to know where to start with this. As I say, I'm crazy enough to be going for a full Super Nintendo set. And I've tried to display them all based on aesthetics alone. So we've gone sort of like with the darker games here. Some real nice pieces in here throughout. Pocky and Rocky 2 was one I added in 2024. I think it's the most expensive game I've ever bought. But if you're going to spend a lot of money on a game, spend a lot of money on a great game. And that's a real good game. And then we make our way into pinks, reds, etc. And as you can see, I just think it gives this great effect. So much great stuff in here. It take too long to highlight it all. Sunset Riders. So we go into yellow, and then into green, and then into blue, black. Super Garnet just chilling out there. Couple of nice additions from this year. Actraiser 2, Wolverine, which we've only recently added. Biometal was another recent addition, which took me a lot of time to find. And even on the bottom here, this is just like the overflow shelf that I can only display spine only. There's just so many games, but I think it's when you look at it from afar, I just think the wall looks great, and I just really wanted to have them forward facing. I really wanted to enjoy the artwork, because for me, that's what games are. They're pieces of art, and it brings me a lot of pleasure. I'll often come in here in an evening, turn the light on, and just literally stand here, soak it all up, look at my Super Nintendo collection and everything that's in this room, and just smile and close the room and, yeah, go back to the real world. But again, I just want to stress that for me, whilst this is an annual thing, I really wanted to record this room in its current guise, because there are going to be huge changes coming imminently. I'll be heading to IKEA in the next few days and weeks. Keep it locked to the channel, because yeah, we're going to be documenting it all on the channel, of course. But everybody, thank you very much for taking the time to watch. If you're not already, hit that subscribe button. Play your games. Keep it retro. I'll see you real soon. Take care. Hi everybody, welcome.